it's like really talking to your clients and letting them know we're going to try to go in this market. There's a possibility it might not go the way that we want, but we have to. To me, if you're not trying and if you're not putting risk on the line, then what are we doing, right? It's like I'm actually somebody who's okay with failing, right? And not saying that we fail on anything, but I'm okay with doing that risk for the bigger reward. So it's like really like getting in there and talking to them about the strategy, right? And like the goal, I think the goal should be like when you're out every 2 3 years is gaining the new fans, gaining that new network.
All right, today we got one of the most powerful agents in the game, Kevin Shivers, partner at WME. Welcome to the pod. Feel like we're long overdue.
Thanks for having me, Dan. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like this time of year, I always see the festival posters come up for all of the music festivals. And I'm sure you've seen the one where they replace the names of the festivals with the agencies that they're all part of. And whenever I see the WME, I'm like, man, Kev was on his game this year. He did not let up.
It's definitely not all me, man. There's so many great agents that work here, but we're happy to be a part of this team.
So you've been in the game for a while now, but let's take a step back because I know you've been working at the agency for some time, but what was it that first attracted you to the business?
I have to say it was my mother. When I was a kid growing up, my mother would drag my brother and I to movies every weekend, and that's the first time in my head where I got wait. Love to work in entertainment because I love the movie so much. My mother loves the movie so much. I even think during COVID, she was still going to the movies, and that's like my first like interest into the business. When I graduated high school, I went to college at University of Texas. I majored in film with the plan of moving out to LA and being a producer. And I did move out to Los Angeles. I interned at the Weinstein Company at the time. And then I went on to this company called Sabini Films. They had a deal at Weinstein. And from there, I kind of entered into the film business and I got my first taste into this is not for me. This is not what I want to do with my life. Partly because I was really bad at my job. Like I, I tried, but I didn't want to read 30 scripts a week. This is not what I wanted to do. And then I pivoted. I left there, and I went to this place called Katz Media Group, which is like they did TV sales. And I knew that that wasn't long term. And I went there to stay in Los Angeles and to figure it out. And from there, I figured out I wanted to be an agent at WME. I had some experience in music in Austin, like going to shows. I knew a promoter, this guy Charles Attal, who ran C3, and I, at the time it was William Moore's agency, and that's my first interest into entertainment.
Nice. And I feel like the past year and a half, almost 2 years now, has probably been unlike any other time period since you've been in this. What's that been like for you?
You mean like COVID and the way it's impacted shows?
Yeah.
This it's been a wild ride. Like if I go back to 2020, there was so much going on in the picture of even the world and in all of our lives. You had George Floyd, you had Trump, and you had COVID and the uncertainty. So 2020, at being an agent, it was moving shows from the beginning of the year to the end of the year to that doesn't work to all the social things that are going on in the world to 2021. The first 6 months were kind of the same of 2020, and the first light in the tunnel I think was Rolling Loud. Like Rolling Loud played, and then Lollapalooza was maybe a week or two later, and then you start seeing Austin City Limits and Outside Lands playing off and some tours, and then it started to make sense. And then Omicron comes along, and we're like back for a period of time back at square one. But it seems like 2022 is gonna bring a lot of joy. Shows are playing, Super Bowl's happening in a few days, pro sports are going along, so it seems a lot of positivity.
What do you think will be different for 2022 and 2023 thereafter? Because I feel like it'll be this gradual shift where eventually things will start to feel like the touring schedule is maybe back to somewhat of what it was before COVID. But how long do you think that will really be? Like, what do you think will be the first year that we can look back and be like, okay, this is the first year that doesn't feel like it was impacted in any way?
I think there's some hope in 2022 if we change the way that we're thinking that this is the new world. Things might pop up, the virus might flare back up and flare back down, but like let's try to figure out how to move forward. I think I'm starting to see that people are out and about. And shows are playing sports. You know, the NFL season went through the whole season. They had ups and downs, and I think that like we're starting to see some positivity. Lots of hope for 23. Hopefully 23 we get back to some sort of or we get to some sort of a new normal where we're living in this new world and we're just going with the punches.
I hear that. So I think the good thing for you though is that even until we got to that point, you've been moving a lot. And I know that Tyler, the creator, is one of your bigger clients. And 2021 was a big year for him, headlined a bunch of festivals, dropped his album. What was it like making sure that everything could line up and that you could have everything set for him despite everything else that was going on with the touring business?
First of all, I want to say Tyler's a star and a one of a kind talent, and he knows exactly what he wants. And we're just I'm lucky to be a part of his team, and he has an excellent team around him. It starts with the managers, Chris and Kelly Clancy, who are amazing people. Wallace Fortune is the business manager. Joe Cologne's an amazing lawyer. My partner James Rubin, who does international. Dave Warchafter here at the agency, and all the other people that touch Tyler. But 21 was a great year. We got the headline. Tyler got the headlines from festivals, but it was also it was we had some goals from here. It was also challenging. First thing is the record comes. The record's amazing, and it's also finding a window when we can go on sale when COVID's not surging. And I think that the team and we all got lucky because Tyler, we found a window. We knew Tyler was going to headline Lollapalooza, and the goal was after you get all the media hype coming from Lala, we knew he was going to bring an amazing show. Is that Monday after Lala, finding that window where we can go on sale, and luckily for us, nothing big happened. No COVID spikes out of Lala, nothing crazy, and there's no COVID spikes in the world. So that was first thing, right? I think the second thing when we thought about thinking about touring, it is trying to find the markets for him to play. Tyler's somebody that wants to push the envelopes, and we ended up putting up 35 arenas, breaking in some new markets. I saw him last night at a show in San Diego. He was like, I could have done 50 shows. I mean, granted, it was night two of the tour, and I was like, okay, we'll see how you feel at like night 35, 33 or something. But we were able to break in some new markets: Columbus, Vegas, El Paso, Pittsburgh, to name a few. I think the third thing is that Tyler really wanted to give the fans an ultimate experience. Thus is the lineup. The lineup is Tizo Touchdown, Vince Staples, Cali Uchis. And I think the last thing is, making sure that we hit that sweet spot in pricing. So we, give the fans a place where they can feel happy, a place where they can buy tickets, but also maximizing the gross, keeping ticket sales in the gross. And this was a joint effort with the managers, Chris and Kelly, Michelle Bernstein, who's an excellent marketing ticketing person, and the AAG team led by Cudi over there.
Talk to me a bit more about the new markets and picking those. You mentioned Pittsburgh, you mentioned El Paso. What are the data or the insights or the feel that you look for when you're like, hey, this is somewhere that we want to consider going to that we haven't gone before? And if we do it, this is the type of venue that we should go in this market as opposed to somewhere like a LA or New York where he's already proved himself.
Well, I think there's a few things. So one is whenever with Tyler or any of my clients, I'm always trying to figure out. I want them to play as many places that they can to just reach all the fans and maximize that opportunity when on the road. Because if it's a Tyler or a Corday or whoever it is, or a Cudi, you're not going to get to see them every single year. That is a unique experience. But to answer your direct question, it's a few things. One, looking at the data, if it's from Spotify or past sales. Two is looking at the markets and seeing if there's a building or a venue that makes sense. Like Columbus, we know that's a place, that's a college town. Tyler's played there before, played there, sold out. I think smaller room on the on sale. Knew there was demand. Didn't realize, I mean, the Columbus sales are insane, but this didn't realize, like, wow, I mean, that is really like that's a smaller market that's turned into an A market, right? I think it's looking at our diverse lineup of talent on the bill. Going to a place like El Paso and looking at, oh, there's probably going to be some Cali fans, some Vince fans, some Tizo fans, right? That's a good place, and that's also a place that doesn't get a lot of entertainment. So like, and that ended up being like a home run. So it's like kind of looking at the whole picture of what you got, and talking to a lot of people that are smarter than you, and kind of coming up with a plan, and also just working with good people that have a point of view.
What are the trade-offs that you have to make for those kind of decisions? Because I imagine that there's the ones that do cross the threshold to be like, okay, let's make these happen. But, kind of like you were saying before, it's tough to try to do, 50 shows in a specific short amount of run or whatever it may be. What are some of those considerations you may have to make in terms of the markets that you can't pick, or the ones that you may not be able to put in
I
this time around?
I mean, I think there was a few things. One, it's like really talking to your clients, and letting them know we're going to try to go in this market. There's a possibility it might not go the way that we want, but we have to. To me, if you're not trying, and if you're not putting risk on the line, then what are we doing, right? It's like I'm actually somebody who's okay with failing, right? And not saying that we fail on anything, but I'm okay with doing that risk for the bigger reward. So it's like really like getting in there and talking to them about the strategy, right? And like the goal. I think the goal should be like, when you're out every 2 3 years, is gaining the new fans, gaining that new network.
Right. Especially now, I feel like for someone like him, it's probably been interesting. I know you've been with him to see the rise and just to see how the fan base has continued to evolve over time. So I imagine he probably even sees things where he's like, okay, these are the Tyler fans that, been with me since the Goblin days. If I go to this city versus, you go to this other city, they may not have discovered me as much until Flower Boy or something like that.
I'm sure he does. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And I think with him too, if we talk a bit more about the festival side of things, he obviously was a headliner. As you mentioned, his Lollapalooza show was broadcasted. I didn't go to the show, but I was able to see it through Hulu because they had it coming through there. When you're trying to have someone like him, obviously you have many different artists and they have different levels that they may want to perform at. And ideally, you want to have everyone maximizing and performing at the highest level or being at like the highest row on that festival poster. But for someone like Tyler, is it going into the year like, hey, headline or bust? If we can't be a headliner for this festival, we're not going to do it. Or does it depend on who some of the others are? What are those conversations like?
I think when you start a campaign with any artist, it's just like sitting down with the team and figuring out what the goals are, right? And it's all a trajectory and building on the last. I think you want the goal is always to build on the last time you were out, to build on the last year, right? And having that conversation. And different artists have different things. Some people want to specifically target these particular festivals, or you're going out in this window, and you could maybe use a festival to route in and out to get the gross up for the whole tour. It's just like really just it's really spending time with the client, spending time with the manager to figure out what the goals is, and maximizing the opportunities.
Is it any tougher to do that though, the way that artists can just rise so fast now, especially in the streaming era, because I know that there's normally the standard, you do your clubs, you can do your, ballrooms or amphitheaters, and then maybe if you get to arena or stadiums, that's the trajectory. But with people just getting so big so fast, does that change the dynamic where it's like, okay, how do you still balance where what they may have done last time and using that as a reference point versus how quickly they can rise in this era?
I mean, look, you have to have a point of view, and you have to have a plan, and you have to have some thoughts, right? And I think that people can really jump up really really quickly, but we like to use this thing is don't skip steps, right? Sometimes if you know you can go play an arena, why not go play multiple nights at a smaller room and build the momentum, build a buzz, leave people on the streets, leave them not being able to get to the shows, so that when you come back around, you still have gas in the tank. I mean, there's no one size fit all plan. It's like you have to just know who you're working with, spend time, and really kind of draw that sketch up and map it out. And listen, a plan is just a roadmap, but it can be amended along the way. There's no set in stone thing, but other than like knowing where you want to go, knowing what you think you're gonna be doing the next year, the next 5 years. That is what's most important.
That makes sense. And that reminds me of something I heard. I think it was Olivia Rodrigo had said in some recent interview when she announced her tour, and someone must have asked her something along the lines of, "Hey, you had one of the biggest years in pop music this past year. Could you have done arenas?" And I think she said that same line you said, "I don't want to skip any steps. This is where it's at." So I think that's something that definitely rings true. And we're seeing the examples of that.
And you got to ask yourself after arenas, then what? Where are you going after that? I mean, like and you might already have that plan in your head, but like these careers are it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm. So, what do you think some of the mistakes that artists can make? Like, I mean, you don't have to drop any names. You don't got to put anybody on blast. But is there anyone that you think maybe made a touring misstep, where there's something where you can look back and be like, if they had done that a little differently, things could have worked out a little bit, whether it's better or worse or however for them?
I think sometimes when people overthink it and end up doing nothing, that's like a bummer for everybody. That's a bummer for the artist. That's a bummer for the fan. That's a bummer for the culture. Like you're hot, you're popping right now. We really need to see you. We really need to see you show up and pull up on us and see what you have. And I think that's a mistake. That not a mistake, but that's just a bummer for everybody. We want to see you. We want to see you do your thing. And I would love it if instead of doing nothing, that artists sometimes people would do something.
Hmm. So, you think part of it is that there's a hesitancy to try to capture the moment, or sometimes they can be a bit more or hesitant to do things when there is an opportunity to go back out there?
Or they just don't know, or they just are trying to get it perfect. And like we're all gonna make mistakes. It's gonna be ups and downs. I think sometimes you just gotta go play. You gotta go give the fans what they want.
Mm. Do you think any of this has become any more challenging in the social media era? Because one thing that I've heard both on the talent side is that artists are even more so particular about how everything looks from a live perspective, because that shot that goes on Instagram or that shot that goes on TikTok, that influences ticket sales, especially from, whether it's the first show or whatever it is. Do you feel like artists are feeling like they need to have things more perfect, even though deep down you know that it shouldn't be that way?
I mean, it's got to be really really tough because the camera's always on. Somebody's always whether you like it or not, is documenting things that you do. So I think that I couldn't even imagine how much pressure that is and how tough that has to be. And it's that's social media can be good, and then there can be some other sides where you're like, wow, this is tough.
Yeah. I know we've talked a lot about Tyler and about hip hop overall, but I know another one of the major artists you represent is Summer Walker. And, she had a big year last year as well. And I want to hear the differences when you're planning a tour for, or you're planning live events in general for a R&B artist as opposed to someone in hip hop.
I don't think there's really many differences. I just think you have to just it goes back to the same is knowing the artist, planning, and really just get, and figuring out what the goals that they have and how you can best service them, right? I don't really think there's a different strategy or a different lane. I think the fans are, if you love Summer Walker, you love Summer Walker. You're gonna go out and see her, right? And she has an incredible fan
Yeah.
base.
Okay, that makes sense. Because one of the things I was wondering with someone like her, knowing how passionate her fan base is, I was wondering if there was a connection of like, oh, the streams may show this and the data may show this, but because of how R&B fans are, there may be a bit more likelihood that that could translate to ticket sales or purchases as opposed to other genres.
I think the fans are gonna come out if they love somebody and Summer speaks to her fans, like people like the Summer Walker followers are they love her. I think they're just gonna come out and show up and see her play.
No, that's real. That makes sense. So for you, I mean, I know you got a full roster and you're always making sure that you can maximize them to the best of their abilities. So how do you measure success for yourself as a partner and as someone that's representing them on their behalf?
Um, the answer is real simple: helping others. Right? I got into this business because I wanted to help artists grow, and it's like it starts with the clients. Like when you start thinking about people that I work with, like what can I do to help them? What can I do to help them grow? Are we giving them everything that they need? Are we, from last year to this year, are we showing up every day to help them get to that next level? That's the first thing. I think also the way I measure success is like the same thing with helping others. It starts for me every day with my assistant Ebony. I think she's going to be a great executive one day, but am I showing up for her? Do I slow down enough to answer her questions? Do I mentor her? Do I spend time with her? Because like that's important to me. We have many amazing young agents that work here. Am I showing up enough to help them sign clients? Am I giving them what they need? I think measuring success is everybody around you doing well? Are you doing what's good for the organization? I co-run hip hop with Zach Isaac, Caroline Yim, and James Rubin. Caroline's always saying we got to take care of our youngins. It's Justin Neighbors getting what he needs. It's Sarah Tarani getting what they need. And then I think it's really about creating that culture, creating that universe that the people you're with are rising to the next level, being selfless, and then also from a D&I perspective of like what diverse people can we grow, can we hire, are we retaining them? These are all the ways that I measure success. I try not to look at what other people are doing because I mean it doesn't really matter. I want to make sure that the organization and the people around me are set up for success.
I hear that. And I think a lot of the themes you mentioned there align with mentorship, and whether it's being a mentor or support for the artists that are looking to you for guidance, your coworkers and your colleagues. Can you talk a little bit more about why that's so important to you? Because even in reading and hearing other interviews, I know you've been active on that front, making sure that you can use your platform and where you are to pass the torch and help others along the way.
I think mentorship is like it's one of these things like if we're not mentoring then what are we doing? Why are we even showing up? You have to always be trying to look out for other people. I've had people that looked out for me in my career, people that still look out for me, and I think that is one of the key things. It's one of the reasons that makes me want to get up every day and come into the office. It's like helping others. I think that's one of the reasons why we're put on this earth is to help people. Um, and that's just there's no that's a non-negotiable thing is mentorship. I mean, the crazy fact about I'll go do an interview or I'll do a panel, and everybody that writes me on IG or LinkedIn, I write everybody back. Everybody, I mean, I probably send more people to the HR department here for jobs than anybody because I just write everybody back. I think that's important because I was once that young kid that I wanted to figure this out and like I didn't know, I had no clue, and people helped me. So I think that's a very important aspect of the job.
100%. And even on a personal level, I remember the first time you reached out to me, you were just like, hey, Love what you're doing. Hey, how can I help? And you were just like, oh, who do you want to interview? Oh, I was just texting them yesterday. Boom, let's get this done. So even on a personal level, I mean, you're looking out for me, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is, I listen to your podcast every week. I think it's amazing. I think what you're doing for the culture is great, and I just wanted to get to know you, and just to, just to help where I can, and that's just that's what I think is important.
Definitely. Definitely. And one of the things that you had put out, it was a couple years back, but it really stuck out to me was this was right after George Floyd's murder, and the music industry had the show must be paused response. And you had written this guest post on Polestar, and you were talking about how this industry just needs to do better by its black execs, specifically on the recruiting front. And I know you were just talking about how, you're always pushing things forward to HR, and I'm sure this must be really personal for you as well. You are one of the few folks that looks like you in the position that you have in this whole industry. So I'd love to hear how you feel like the industry has responded since everything had happened after George Floyd's murder, and the response to where we are now in 2022.
In response to your comment about I'm one of the person that looks like me in the industry, I always say to everybody, I'm amazing, but I'm not that amazing. Like there should be more people that look like me doing what I do, and partners in hire, right? And I think we still have a lot of work to do. There's good news though. There's positive conversation around D&I. People are aware. People are aware that there needs to be more black people, and more diverse people need to have more opportunities. I still think that we need to keep pushing the envelope. We still have a lot more to do in terms of hiring and creating opportunities for black people. The organizations know they have to do better, but they have to buck the old status quo. They have to go outside of the norm. And to them, to some people, it might be like, oh, we're taking a risk. No, D&I has to be inside of your lifeline, inside of your blood, inside of your everyday practices. It's not something that you can just talk about once a quarter. You got to live it. You got to be in it every day. And I believe that black people need to be promoted. They need to be elevated. They need to be given the same opportunities and shots. When we were interviewing for jobs, I think in the industry, not just entertainment, there needs to be you need to be interviewing black people, people of color, LGBTQ. There just needs to be more opportunity. We need more Sylvia Romes, more Ethiopias, more Tunjis at Def Jam. We need more leaders, more partners. I mean, we have to just keep our foot on the gas, keep pushing the envelope, because we're not there yet, but we're going in the right direction, and we need to keep the momentum.
Right. And I think even an example of that, the folks you just mentioned, I think, and a lot of folks in this industry are all on a first name basis. And as incredible as all those folks are, how do we get to the point where they're not on a first name basis, because they aren't just the few black execs in there? I mean, it's definitely going to continue to take time. And I think whether it's conversations like this or the efforts you're doing will help, but I'm hopeful that it can get there eventually.
I'm hopeful too. I think we gotta stay targeted and focused, but also at the same time remember, like, this didn't happen overnight, right? It's not going to change overnight, but we have to stay on this, because it can change, and it needs to be better.
Definitely. So let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk a little bit about the future, specifically with regards to touring and technology and what things will look like in the potential with Web3 and the metaverse. Because now you have agencies that are specifically, I'm sure WE likely also has a division where focus specifically on digital environments or getting artists lined up on that perspective. How do you look at that specifically with the artists you have on your roster and what the potentials are for them in these digital worlds?
I think Web3 is just it's massive, huge opportunities. If you think about the evolution, it started in virtual, went over to Fortnite, but I just think it brings control back to the artists. In a way, artists have been acting like this the whole time. These music artists, they've had fan clubs, they've had social media, but what Web3 does, it gives more control to them. It's going to give them more power, but like it kind of cuts out that middleman. And I think things are going to change in the next 6 months, next 5 years. It's going to be an exciting world. If you look at what Coachella did by selling an NFT for a lifetime Coachella pass, I mean, I think artists are going to come up with these things where if you want to be in the front row of my show, here's an NFT for the chance to buy the front row tickets, or maybe it just goes inside of there and they figure it out with the promoter. But I just think like it's an exciting time. Like endless. I was just on the phone with Nate Jones the other day. I love what he's doing with Royal, and I think the deal that he did with Nas and Anthony Soleil is like an amazing, and that's just like where things are headed. I mean, it's just it's gonna as any of this thing, it's gonna be ups and downs, right? In the Web3, but I just think it's the opportunity is endless.
Yeah, things are early. Things are also moving really fast. 6 months from now is going to look completely different. And I am excited for the artists that are taking advantage early. I feel like I can already imagine Camp Flog Gnaw Carnival having some type of digital environment or some type of experience in the metaverse.
I mean, I'm sure it will. I'm sure Lollapalooza and some of these other properties that's where they're headed. I mean, it's going to be a really exciting time.
For
I
sure,
just
for
hope
sure.
people get off the couch and still come out to shows.
Is that a concern you have though? Like, do you wonder
No,
about
no,
that in the
I
future?
was just joking. I mean, I don't think anything can replace the live experience. Just like being like the Zooms are great, right? But I think when you're in a meeting with somebody, it's just like it's 10 times better. And I think in a concert, it's 100 times better. I love going to festivals. I've been to them all over the world, and I love seeing the reactions in real time on people's faces from their favorite artists hitting the stage. So I don't think anything can replace it. I think it's going to only enhance the experience.
Agreed. That's what I always go back to too. Everything in these experiences are additive. It isn't a replacement for anything. And I think it'll probably just force more creativity for every aspect because you're not just trying to have something be a catch all. So I think I'm interested to see how it'll continue to shape live performances and what that can look like from the IRL experience.
Correct.
Yeah. And on that note, do you have any predictions for what you think the next 3 to 5 years or so will look like specifically in the live space? I mean, pandemic notwithstanding, I mean, obviously, I think we'll continue to see the after effects of that, but any type of evolutions or any type of future changes that you think we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2022 is going to be bigger than we thought. I think that hopefully, touring is going to be I think we're headed to a healthy touring environment. I think there's going to be new players in terms of buyers and festivals. And I think the fan experience that's going to be the thing of the future. I think everyone has realized they have to zero in on the fan from artist curated weekends and festivals to I think even super service in the fan. Think about this. Think about a world where service lets you buy a ticket, has a car that picks you up, dinner reservations, great seats, and even finds you a babysitter. Like I think that's where we're going. We're going to this place where like, okay, I'm busy, I don't even want to deal with this. Boom, hit a button and this is where we're going. And I think that's exciting because, getting inside of the mind of the fan, what they really want is going to be the next evolution.
Yeah. Even you mapping that out, if you literally could press one button and solve that, I think you'd also just increase the amount of people that could come through too, right? You mentioned in the babysitter, the amount of people that have young kids, and it's like, just the thought of them needing to be like, oh, we got to find someone for this to come in for this night. Like, yeah, if all that can be taken care of.
I mean, because I think people love live music, and live music is such a treat. But when you think about the hurdles you have to do, you got to put on some clothes. Maybe show starts at 7. Get home, work, feed your kids, do this, do that, and if you could just take some of that away from them, and that's like bringing the fan experience to a new level.
Definitely. So I know that you're always on the go with festivals, and I know you love going to them, but I know it's also for your work as well. If you had to guess, how many shows do you think you'll go to in 2022?
I can tell you this. I'd rather answer a different way. How many days? Because I plan on hitting a lot of festivals in 2022. So I think I'm going to be, I call it 50 to 60 days watching music, right? That's what I'd
Okay.
say. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, and even that, I mean, that's a lot more than the average person, but I mean, it's just incredible because you get to just see all the fine tunes. You get to just see everything. And like you mentioned, this isn't just US, you're traveling all across the world for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the that's that's one of the reasons I love doing what I do. I mean, like really, I get to go see live music in different parts of the world. I mean, I can't even imagine anything better than that.
Yeah. So, last question before we let you go. I know we talked a lot about Tyler, and I know from our conversations just the uniqueness of you seeing that star power and star potential, even from the first time you connected. How do you find that next Tyler, or how do you find that thing to know, okay, yeah, this is the one that we need for this next generation?
Oh, wow. I think when I'm looking to sign somebody, I'm fine. I'm looking for somebody that has a unique point of view, for somebody that is fearless and that wants to do the work.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Hear that, man. Well, hey, before we let you go, man, this was great. I'm glad you could come through and make this happen. But is there anything else you want to plug or let the Travel audience know about?
I think everybody should go out and see some shows this year, and know that 20. I think 2022 is going to be a good year. And then one thing I want to say is to somebody who wants a career in entertainment, I think you should go for it. I think you should move to LA, move to New York, move to Atlanta, move to Nashville, cold email some people. If you cold email me, I'll probably write you back pretty soon, and just let it and just go for your dreams.
Nice. What's your email address?
Kshivers at wmeagency.com. It's all good.
No, I appreciate that, man. All right,
All right.
well, Kevin, man, thanks for coming through. This is a pleasure.
All right. Appreciate you, Dan.